once you look at just the zap, if you're any true physicist, you want to know if you can trust a physicist or not, you show them just the zap of just the thermal video where you see the plane disappear in this black cold event.
Mm-hmm.
Any physicist worth their weight in their knowledge is going to say you're looking at negative energy right there, because they're going to be able to tell that's cold, that's black, and they're going to immediately go, wow, wait, what? And they're going to start, because they should trigger all these. I found dozens of scientific papers about 0 point energy and negative energy, all being possible. And so, yeah, when I find all these scientific papers about these concepts out there, I'm absolutely sure that this stuff is really out there and has been hidden from us. And like you mentioned, Stanley Meyer was the guy, I think, with the water power car.
Yeah, that's right.
What you find out with negative energy is negative energy and negative pressure differential, which is shown by the Casimir effect, where two plates come together when they're very close to one another. You're going to find that almost all these papers mention the Casimir effect. Because what we realize is that negative energy is not an exotic substance. It's a way that we need to look at the universe. If we look at the universe filled with energy, negative energy is anything below sea level. Above sea level is positive energy that we see all around us. So we can pull the negative energy out and it just becomes positive energy, which means it's not this exotic substance that's out there. Stanley Meyer figured this out. And what this allows for is cold fusion. And sonoluminescence is one example of cold fusion,
Can you
where
explain
they
what that is?
literally can create a star in a jar. And what's happening? The water molecules are breaking up into hydrogen and oxygen, just naturally coming apart. And we're getting that excess energy from them breaking apart. Wow. And then we can shift this over to a new area. And now the hydrogen and oxygen are going to want to try to reconnect again and become water once again. And this is what Stanley Meyer was doing. In fact, I think what he was really doing, though, is the water was breaking apart into oxygen and hydrogen, and then he was using that in the combustion engine. And once you realize that negative energy is possible, it's so much easier to evaluate some of this stuff that's gone out there. And the reason why it hasn't gained traction is just disinformation. In fact, I don't think the government even has to work very hard in most cases, because physicists are so narcissistic and egotistical that anything that goes against their conventional understanding, they just will dismiss it outright. Like, even on its merits, they'll just say, nope, sorry. Like, that doesn't make sense. I don't believe in that. I was told that negative mass, negative energy is not possible. Like, that's how they actually react.
Right. It's like Neil deGrasse Tyson versus Terrence Howard.
Yeah, and I mean, and look, I respect like Sabine Hassenfelder. She's got a website, YouTube with like 1.5 million followers, but she does all these same things as well, which like she doesn't do any due diligence on any of this stuff. People have a device and she just claims, oh, but it can't be real because it violates the laws of thermodynamics. Which is like kind of like saying that wind power and solar power aren't possible because it violates laws of thermodynamics, when in reality, you're just tapping into an energy source that's there naturally.
I wonder how many people are scared to go against tradition and how many people are scared to go against the industry, you know?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, because also peer review process has been completely co-opted and corrupted.
Absolutely.
To the point now where it becomes a matter of where's the money coming from.
Right.
If you get the money to write a paper or make a model, this is what they did during COVID, which is go make a model that explains that masks work. Go make a model that explains that these stupid 6 feet rules and all this other bullshit they made up. Go make a model that shows that all this stuff is real. Right. So what's going to happen? Of course, they're going to come back with an answer that says, yeah, the model shows that this is totally helping, right? Happens in all areas of science. And what you find about a lot of these people too, like Charles Bueller, for example, has been trying to show that the EM drive is real, which is a reactionless, propellantless craft that can fly around in outer space. And he's basically treating space as a medium, and you can just push off of it the same way a submarine pushes off the water. And he can't get the funding. Why? I mean, this stuff is expensive. It takes a lot of stuff to test this and to configure your experiment to produce the results that you want. And so if nobody funds you, it just goes away. And then if you are successful, then one of these big defense contractors or energy companies can just buy your thing out.
Right.
And then they just put it on the shelf. This was literally the plot in the TV show Fallout. Literally what's really happening in the real world was that the cold fusion had been figured out. And in the video game and the TV show, Vault-Tec buys it and they just shelf it because cold fusion and free energy doesn't make us money.
Right.
We make money selling oil and what have you. And Lockheed Martin makes a lot of money selling F-35 fighter jets that are all potentially obsolete.
Yeah, that's why I think a lot of these private people can't get funds, because it's all being funneled towards these dark, clandestine projects that Lockheed's pulling off. Even, and I'm not a fan of AOC, but to her credit, she, after one of the last, I hate saying UAP, I prefer UFO, but she calls
Let's
it
just
UAP.
call it UFOs. I'm not
It's
doing
UFOs.
UAPs. Like that's their word.
Yeah, let's keep UFOs. Make America UFO again, people. But she calls it the UAP committee. And after that happened, one of the last ones, she said, where's all this money going to Lockheed? Why is it going there? There's no oversight. I'm like, I agree. Like, we don't really know what they're doing. They're just making all this crazy stuff. Like, we could talk about the spy satellites, and they're very nefarious. I mean, you can go look them up, and they've got, octopi with things that say, like, nothing's beyond our reach. Like
that's NROL 41. That's one of my favorite
I love that he knows that. Love that you know that. What about the devil? Which one has better the devil you know? Do you know? That's a literal spy satellite. Like, it's disturbing. But that's the only thing to know.
Nothing is beyond our reach. That was one of the radar satellites as well. That was one of the next generation radar satellites. So it's probably using synthetic aperture radar, meaning that there's no hiding on this planet.
Exactly.
And if they can use gravity waves, then there really is no hiding. Like, they can actually just map the whole planet. And if there is some race of people hiding underground, they can find those people too.
Right. So that's a good segue then to talk about UFOs and UFO disclosure. And I've seen you talk about it recently. What do you make of what's going on now? We see people talking about, I think it's Immaculate Conception, they're calling it, with this new this
constellation.
Oh, yeah.
Close enough. So yeah, no, that's a great.
That's amazing.
Because AOC, honestly, I don't give her credit for much, but she impressed me more than most of the other Congress people during that UFO hearing.
It was impressive.
She's like, I'm looking for the money.
Right.
That's exactly it.
Right.
Like, there's 70 to 80 billion dollars every year is going into black projects that's unaccountable. And they literally just use shell umbrella organizations to fund it. Like, Lockheed Martin will have a subsection where they're like, I'm going to contract out to these engineers that they know that are legit, and they're going to go do this black budget program that's underneath this other company, and you're never going to untangle the web.
That's how they did MK Ultra. There were like at least 100 projects within MK Ultra. And they just kept popping up, and they just keep folding in and out of one another. But what do you make of what's going on the past year? I feel like it's ramped up. They're telling us whistleblowers, or we're seeing, the Tic Tacs people talked about even before that. New York Times was sharing an article about, a vehicle not of this planet. What do you think? Do you think this is extraterrestrial? Do you think this is just our government and Lockheed using our tax dollars to make fun stuff?
Yeah, I think that from my experience researching all this and looking into it, the more I dig into it, the less sure I am about aliens at all in terms of what the nature of non-human intelligence is at all. I think that a lot of it is probably ours, and where it came from is a big question that I will leave to the other people to try to figure out. But it's almost like also saying, like, where did the atomic bomb come from? Well, we figured it out at some point, right? Like, where did the idea of 0-point energy come from? Well, we figured it out at some point. Or, maybe we dug up a craft, maybe the ETs crashed here. We knocked them down with a scalar beam because it's like knocking a surfer off their surfboard. And then maybe we figured it out from there. Truly, I don't really know. What I do know is that if I'm looking at a UFO, if I believe that a flying saucer can hover in the air like this. Wait, I'm not sure.
You got it. I got you.
Let's go like over here. Okay. If I've got this UFO hovering over the air like this, the distraction is, what are the beings flying in there? That's the distraction. What color is the skin on the alien that's flying that? The people that are the logic critical thinkers want to know, who's the puppet master? How is this thing floating in the sky? There's no SpaceX engines on this. There's no room for fuel. It takes a huge amount of energy just to levitate above the Earth and counteract the force of gravity, let alone zip off at hypersonic speeds or at teleport through a wormhole. They believe, based on conventional understanding of physics, that the amount of mass it would take to teleport through a wormhole is like the size of Jupiter. So an astronomical amount of mass. So it can't be hiding in this UFO.
Right.
So the only way for this UFO to be floating is there must be an exotic energy source. It must be pulling energy from the environment somehow. And then the question is, okay, is it solar? Is it fusion? What are they doing? The real answer is they're extracting energy from the 0-point energy field all around us, because we are in a field of energy, and that field of energy is not shallow. It is extremely deep. And if we were to pull energy out of it, it's immediately going to kind of level out again. Just like if I were to pull water out of the ocean, there's not going to be a hole left behind. Right. It immediately fills up again.
It's an infinite source. I want to say real quick, I agree with you, but I also would be worried about who's driving. because I'm like, like, what is their intention and why are they here and why they keep abducting me in my sleep? Like, I don't know, but I know what you're
Yeah, no,
saying.
that's a great question because, like, and that's the part for me. It's like it's interesting to think about in terms of what is the non-human intelligence answer.
Right.
And if I'm betting, like to me, ancient breakaway civilization is way up on the list because I don't see a lot of aliens on people's flip phones or whatever on their smartphones.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, the answer would be it's something that can either stay invisible or it looks very similar to us. And you can
Okay.
imagine what there is like a Wakanda out there where there's
Right.
this group of humans that are like actually literally elites. They live just like us, but they have access to this like super technology that's basically Star Trek level.
So I
So
love that idea. Can you just kind of like walk us through the idea of what you mean by ancient breakaway civilization?
yeah, so for me, it's like we look at like you look at Graham Hancock stuff where he's looking at all these
Yeah.
ancient civilizations and he believes there was a ancient civilization. It's like our humanity is only like 10,000 years old. Like from going from like hunter gatherers. So it's kind of like, wait, that doesn't make a lot of sense considering how advanced we are.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people believe that there was like resets that maybe happened. And if that's the case too, like if the universe right now, we think the universe is 26 billion years old. If you asked me a year ago, they would have said it's like 14 billion years old. So we just went up 12 billion years in just the last year.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we might find out if the zero point energy theory is correct and space is a medium, that the reason why we see all this red shift, which tells us that everything's moving away from everything else, it means everything's inflating. We might find out that's just tired light and everything's not actually moving away from everything else.
Hmm.
In which case, the universe could be infinitely old and there might not even have been a Big Bang. If that's the case, why do we think we're the most advanced civilizations around the block?
Right.
Somebody could have been here before us. We could be the aliens that we landed here, crashed here, we forgot our past,
Right.
and we've been living here for 10,000 years, not even realizing that we could be shooting amongst the stars. Like, I think people really need to think way outside the box on this. We need to humble ourselves as a species at this point and say, there could be anything going on here, and somebody could have been here before us. And learning this science about zero point energy is not, there's no like prerequisites. Like
Right.
it's a discovery of nature itself.
And you're saying
It's
that
real.
it's possible that these ancient civilizations were super advanced. They bounced basically and are able to observe us using energy they were able to tap into. That now they're seeing us just like walking around like numbskulls.
Yeah, we would be nothing to them.
Right.
We are literally just primitives. We're cave people still. We think we're so advanced because we have lights and we can stream, live stream something like this
Yeah,
in
look at
different
this.
areas. But like this is still, we're still Stone Age level technology. We're still clapping when we make a boom happen and a rocket go into the sky. Make big explosion, rocket go up.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the aliens and what have you, or anybody else, not even intelligent, the breakaway civilization, they're looking at us. They're just laughing.
Well,
their
I'm about to
asses
bring
off.
in my next guest, Elon Musk, who does not like what you just said.
This is why I troll Elon too. 'Cause Elon's like on Joe Rogan talking about we know there must be a way to go faster than the speed of light because dark energy and the Big Bang, the universe needs to expand faster than the speed of light. So we know there must be a way.
Right.
And the answer is so simple. Like there's this sea of energy that's homogeneously distributed, which is why we don't experience it because we're not really going through like a hot or a cold area. Everywhere we go is like the same amount of energy. So it's like being in the bathtub and somebody could touch the water and it would feel very warm. But if it's the exact same temperature as your body, like it feels just like neutral to you.
Right. Why do you think Elon doesn't talk more about it in terms of like free?
Yeah.
He might have mentioned it here and there, and I've missed it. But he's named his company after Tesla. Didn't Tesla talk about free energy? You'd think you'd talk
Tesla
more about
was
it.
like the discoverer of radiant energy. We didn't
What's going on
even,
there?
the max electrical engineering didn't even exist. Tesla invented
Right.
alternating current, the power we literally use today everywhere around you.
Right.
Tesla invented it, and he said we can pull infinite energy because what he realized is that burning coal, burning any fossil fuel, solar, wind, none of these things are adding any watts to the power line. What's happening is a copper wire is spinning through a magnetic field. And this is churning up the ether, being a connection to this energy, pulling the energy out. That's what's actually happening. The stuff about us burning stuff, steam through turbines, all that stuff's doing. Wind, whatever, it's just spinning a generator. That's it.
Right.
So end of the day, if you really boil it down, it's just the copper wire is changing over time. The magnetic and electric fields are changing over time. That's what's causing the energy to start being pulled out. And this is so important and yet so basic to understand. because if you want to solve an engineering problem, you need to get to the root cause. And once you get to that root cause, you go, okay, well, then really all we need to do is figure out a way where we can create an asymmetry where you've got like a battery, more electric negative charge on one side than the other.
Mm-hmm.
And then you plug that into a circuit, and now energy begins to flow. So it's like what we want to do is, like Tom Beard would say, keep our dipole open. I'm sure Tesla understood this and knew this, and he was just 100 years ahead of his time, maybe 200 years.
I'm sure Elon must be working on stuff like this secretly. He just
maybe he's
can't talk
time
about it yet.
traveled.
Well, Elon, perhaps, if he's even a human, I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know. He might
I can't get a beat on him, but the thing I will say is that factually he is the #1 defense contractor in the world, and his SpaceX is shooting up spy satellites now for some of these other defense contractors, for the DoD as well.
That's true.
So he probably has an NDA that he can't even comment on the satellite video. Because if that satellite video is real, then anybody who's got an NDA and has ever seen any of this stuff is literally not even allowed to comment on it.
That's a really good point.
Which is part of the reason why I get freaked out when people don't comment on this satellite video that are like big people, because I'm like, man, do they have an NDA?
Especially ones that launch stuff into space all the time.
Yeah.
Who talk about all of these things, who's very open about talking to things. And look, I talk a lot of smack on Elon all the time, but I also think he's a genius and he's an innovator, and I appreciate it. And I love that he's doing things that we can have these conversations about. But yeah, I was curious, both those things, why he hasn't talked about the Malaysian stuff when, it seems like the world has lately. A lot of people have been talking about it, and everyone can fight over the videos and all that stuff. But I've been consistently saying what you've been bringing to the table in terms of the conversation around it is really interesting. And the theories, whether it's the science or that people should be worried about the spy satellites that are filming it, it's all very interesting. But yeah, I wonder what it is with Elon, or perhaps he knows he can't even mess with the industry of energy. Because what's the world going to look like if everyone has access to this?
Yeah, and I think there's a real danger aspect to it as well, but there is also this idea that the elites that know about this, whoever they are, covert administrative elite, deep state, breakaway civilization, whatever you want to call them, it's not as simple as it's like these people in authority or whatever. It's like people that are generally high up, that are well connected, that probably visited Epstein Island or stuff like that. Like even I'm joking, but at the same time, like generally the people they put in those positions, they have dirt on them so that they can manipulate them for whatever reason. They know this technology is real. It's out there. They think that they're better than us. They basically look at us like cattle. They have to make the decisions for us. They probably think we're going to destroy ourselves, but at the same time, they have monetary incentive to keep the old structures in play. Because if we have unlimited energy access, then our entire civilization changes.